All right, here we go. We have one of the most rising producers and engineers out of the city right now, JDMakesNoise. How are you doing today, man?
What's up, bro? I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. Thank you for coming by to the platform for your first ever in-person interview. A great journey, by the way, with your music and all that. When I found you from your second project, the MKSMNS project, it was actually very interesting, with Volume 2, with the additions that you had, because I found out more from Dexray, who you've worked with for a bit too on that project as well, and it's just nice seeing the community all together, with the people you're bringing out too, and just reading the biography too as well. You've had a lot of interesting people that you've worked with so far, with Duvy, with Jayy Brown, with Jaay Cee, with Honcho Hoodlum, and even off the music stuff Terror Lord, Vivid, Raymind, and all that. An interesting catalog, by the way, with those first two projects and all that.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity coming on here, and yeah, I appreciate that you took the time to check out some of my work before and just the people I've worked with. So that's a compliment, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I mean, we had to show support on the second project, and just had to find out more about you from that sense too. And we don't really get a lot of producers and engineers within the city to share their stories and to share their journeys and all that. And I do feel they are a pivotal part in the music industry, with creating some of the most well-known beats to mixing some of the most well-known songs too. So it's interesting to hear and all that.
It's true. Yeah, no, engineers and producers are definitely a pivotal part, and you're right to say that some of the stories aren't really that heard, when I feel producers and engineers probably have some of the best stories, from sessions to things that go wrong to craziness and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's your first time here today on the platform. So I just wanted to ask, where did you grow up in Toronto, and what was it like for you growing up? Would you say you had a great childhood back then, or would it be different?
Yeah. I grew up in Rexdale, and so I think I had a pretty good childhood. I got the opportunity to grow up with some of my closest friends on the same street that I lived on. So having that opportunity with them was pretty amazing. Being able to just go outside and just play some shit like soccer, basketball. We had a high school beside our house, Don Bosco, for anybody who knows where that is. But yeah, we lived right there, so just doing anything we wanted was pretty easy. So yeah, it was pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Don Bosco was a very well-known high school for football and all that. Yeah. With Rob Ford, yeah. Even doing the coaching for a bit too, and
yeah.
Showing up to a lot of the games too. I don't know if that school is still open anymore. If it's
no, they closed it down. They closed the school down. It's actually another school right now. They changed it. I forget what the school's called, but yeah, Don Bosco. It's not called Don Bosco anymore. They actually use Don Bosco for movie sets and stuff for a little bit, and then before that it was supposed to be the Argos training facility, but that fell through. So they had a lot of plans for that place, but I think they just turned it back into another high school.
Yeah, and when we talked about Rexdale too for a bit too, I do feel it was very well known within the music industry too, in that sense, with people like Jellystone, with Pyrex, with Mula, Pillaby, I think Andrina Mills was from there too. Payback, a lot of other people were in that area, making hits, making a lot of dope music. Nav too, one of the biggest out there. So, in your opinion, was it well known as an industry and back then, or just as a community for music?
From my perspective, it wasn't really that. When I was younger, I didn't really hear about Nav and Pilla and Mula until later on, more recently. I think 4, 5, 6 years. But when I was a lot younger, the guy that I heard about the most, his name was Big Saturn. That was his name. He was probably the top guy I knew from Rexdale at the time when I was a lot younger. And he came out with this one song called Dunno, 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 and it was just a crazy track back then. It was super sick. But yeah, he was the one that I really knew about back then. But then as time went on, guys like Mula, guys like Philip, all these guys started coming out, Pyrex. And it grew the name of the West Side a little more, Not to say that it wasn't big before, but it just, everything adds to what's already going on. So it's good to see.
No, most definitely, man. I know Big Saturn. I think I I know like some people say he might be from Dixon and all that, like around those ends too. But yeah, no, he's like a very interesting artist too. I think he had like one of the most like well known songs to Boss Up, which had like a lot of views as well. So it's like interesting to see and all that.
No, Big Saturn is an interesting artist to watch as well because from them to him now is like a crazy transition, and it's really cool for him to like kind of find a new pocket and a new wave and keep evolving, which is really cool. Like back I used to work at a studio called Midnight Studios, and this guy Prez came in and he said we were working on a track, and then he had a feature for a track, and he played the song. I'm like, this guy sounds so familiar, and he's like, this guy's called Big Saturn. I'm like, what? Because he was like singing and stuff, and back then he wasn't really doing that, so it was like super crazy to hear that and just hear him like kill it every time now, you know. So it's really cool.
Most definitely. To get more into your side of like music in that sense too, like what were you like first introduced to like growing up?
In terms of music, when I first grew up, my first memories of music were probably my dad like ripping CDs in his old car. So I used to listen to a lot of like classic rock, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Theory of a Dead Man, you know. My dad loved Nickelback too, you know, so I was listening to a lot of Nickelback, Kiss, right? So a lot of that kind of stuff for my first introduction. And then as I grew older, I kind of started listening to like Eminem, I guess, you know, like stuff like that.
I know with Nickelback too, they do have like a lot of controversy like with the music, like a lot of memes and all that. But do you feel like they're very good like in music in that sense in your opinion?
Yeah, like I like the songs they made, and like with Nickelback it was a tough situation because of the deal they signed, right? So they needed to pump out like something crazy like 7 albums in 2 months or something like that. Like it was like a ridiculous contract. So if you really like dig deeper into their story, you can kind of understand why their music might all sound the same because they were kind of on like a crazy deadline. But like, yeah, for the stuff that they created, like it gets talked about, it's memorable, and you know, like it's timeless in my opinion. So they did a good job for the situation.
Stuff because I know like they had the photograph meme and all that. Like
look at this graph. No, jokes.
So how did you get into producing and sound engineering? I know that you talked about like working at Major Music for a bit, and what inspired you to become like that whole to become like a producer and sound engineer as well?
So like I didn't really start working at Major Music till I was in music for like 4 years. So I originally started because like me and the homies and the boys were just like freestyling on YouTube beats and stuff. I'm sure like a lot of people. And that kind of just turned into like recording stuff on like rock band mics and garage band and FL, and I'm just like sitting here, I'm like, man, this sounds pretty shit. Like, how do you make this sound better? Like, what do we do to get it to sound like what we hear on the radio or this and that, right? A lot of questions that everybody has, I feel like, when they start out. So like that kind of, instead of me shifting toward like the artist perspective, I kind of wanted to know more of the background perspective of how music gets made, right? So that kind of piqued my interest that way, and then it kind of snowballed into the motivation and drive I have today for music.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because I was reading that, you know, you started off, you know, recording like in the rock band mics and then like Fruity Loops and all that. So tell me like more about like that experience in that sense, like getting into like Fruity Loops and like, you know, the mics.
Yeah, so like my boy Juan used Fruity Loops. I was more garage band, and then so I originally was recording myself, right? So I would like make raps and stuff, and then just record myself in GarageBand, and then I would just sit here, and then I would go on YouTube. What is an EQ? Like, you know, what does this do? What does that do? Okay, that, and then I would kind of just copy what they were doing and put it on my voice, and then that turned into like, okay, how do I do this better, and then how do I do that better, and then I went to university for a little bit at Laurier, and then there I would like record people at the school in like my room, like in my board, like my student housing room, and getting that practice in was good, you know, like getting reps in at the gym, same shit, like, you know, just learning, trying different techniques, you know, in an environment where it doesn't really, it's not like do or die, you know. So that was good. And then after all that, like, it was like 4 years until I got the internship at Major Music, and then when I got there, I felt like I had a good basis and understanding of the concepts, so that way I can like learn from someone like LC over there, like Vegas, you know. So it was good.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think from that experience, you got that from the Trebus like Institute, right?
Yeah, Trebus. So I went to Travis after I worked at Major Music. So I worked at Major Music for a year, and then after that I went to Travis. So like it was all like so like another point about foundation, you know. So like I needed the foundation to be able to intern and learn more from Major Music, and I learned everything. Like I learned how to move in studio sessions at Major Music. I learned, you know, how to use Pro Tools better. I learned all these things from these engineers, and then I took that information and I brought it to a school setting. So then like I had like a basic understanding of GarageBand, Logic, Pro Tools now, and then I knew what an EQ was, what a compressor was. So that way, when like one of my teachers at school brought me an idea, like this is how you use an EQ like this, and if you do this, this, and this, and this, like you can do this. I'm like, okay, I get it. Whereas like other people might not have the same quickness to understanding because the foundation wasn't there, you know. So I find like foundation is very important.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Like as you said, you know, there is like an importance on like knowing like how the system works and like knowing like what materials like you need to use to actually create like a good song, or how to mix like a song well too in that sense. And I feel like that's used for everything as well, you know, like that whole idea of foundation. It's what you need to create like the best form of product as well too. And I do feel like, yeah, as you said, it's like very necessary. So yeah.
Can't build a castle on a plank of wood, you know.
Exactly. Nah, I know what you mean, and you know, like you can't like use like a ladder without like the steps like needed. So
Exactly. Let's just stick with it. That's it.
yeah, most definitely, man. So you managed to engineer for over 8 years at various locations all over like the GTA.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that, and what was like your first time, you know, going to the studio, you know?
Yeah, my first experience was just recording my friends wherever I could, you know, so it wasn't really that serious. So moving into the studio, it was definitely like more pressure in my eyes the first time, just because I had like an opportunity to make money like consistently through something that I've only worked on like by myself, you know. It was kind of just an idea in my head, and that was really the first time where I had the opportunity to take it further than something that I was just doing, you know. So in that sense, it was pressure, but you know, I went there and I just did what I knew I could do, and brought my training and like all the things that I did before that into the space, so I was comfortable in that sense. So, but working at all these different places, each one gave me a different like perspective, I guess, you know, because obviously each area, like people live differently in each area, and they have different ways of thinking, and they move differently, right? So I worked like Major Music and all these different studios. I worked in like Scarborough for 4 years, for my first like professional 4 years, I guess, of engineering. And like, yeah, it's like people out there, and then the people in the West, for instance, are like, I don't know, just it's just different, just the way they move. So gaining perspective from both sides, and like really learning how to like talk to people and like get through in different situations, you know, how to step up and step back, because like obviously no one likes to get their toes stepped on, you know. So just learning all these different skills, like people skills, yeah, was good.
Definitely. I know this isn't like a part of like the question too, so like, but you mentioned that you went to like Laurier for a bit, and then I don't know if you like graduated or stopped going to Laurier to pursue the music career. So what made that change of heart from, you know, transitioning from, you know, going to school to like becoming like that whole like producer engineer to follow your dreams in that sense?
Yeah. So like I was at Laurier, and I was doing school. I was also engineering on the side, like I was saying, and basically like I had like some setbacks in university, and then so at that point in time my grades were kind of suffering. So at the same time, at that time I applied for an internship at Major Music, and then I got an answer back, and I got an interview and all this stuff. So it really felt like a path switch, you know. Like I'm a big believer on like everybody has a path, and like follow your path and all that stuff, you know. Because if you really just sit back and like listen and really like look at everything that goes on in your life, you can kind of see a pattern and a direction that you should be taking, you know. So at that point in my life, I really saw that as like the opportunity that I needed to kind of make the leap into something that I wanted to do, you know. So yeah.
And you know, in that sense too, like in your opinion, do you feel like getting like an education or getting a trade is like worth it nowadays to, you know, for having a successful life? Or would you say like would it be important to like follow your dreams and follow like whatever you're good at to make it something of your own and actually profit off it?
Yeah, like I think every path has a different pinpoints, you know. So like, if your dream is to be a doctor, then obviously like a lot of people say you need to go to school, you need to get a medical license and all this stuff. Let's say you wanna, like, I don't know, start your own business, start your own paper business. You might not need like a university degree or a college degree at the beginning, but maybe you start the business and now you want to learn more, and then you can always go back to school, you can always go back to college and take your information wherever you need it, you know. So like, I think school is definitely necessary for a lot of stuff, but when you need to go to school is definitely not that necessary. Like, you can go to school whenever you want. So it's all about your path, your process.
No, most definitely, man. And I want to get more into the head engineer situation. So you became like the engineer at Free Studios,
Yeah.
SoundScan, Koopa 145, and Go Club. So we're at Koopa 145 right now for location. So how did those like come about, and how did you feel like when you received the news that you were going to become like the head engineer at those locations?
Yeah. So I started working at it's Co-op 145 and then SoundScan. I started working at them at the same around the same time. So it's been about almost 3 years now. So I think like coming out of school, I was like eager to learn like the analog side of sound, right? Like learning about analog equipment, preamps, analog compressors, all this stuff. So being able to come into an environment where we have like a plethora of that stuff was really exciting. So me just like getting in there and like learning everything there was to know about the systems, about the setup, about what goes wrong, how to fix it, you know. And then so that quickly turned me into the person that everybody would call if there was a problem or something, you know. This isn't working, that happened, this happened, what do I do, you know? And then they would call me and I would like fix it over the phone, you know. So getting put into that position, like, I feel like quickly elevated me past, like, I guess not elevated, but just like I had more understanding of the spaces than other people. So it was kind of like the right call to put me in as that position, because I knew the space the best over time, you know. So, and then on top of like I have like a variety of skills with Pro Tools and stuff and all this stuff and all of my experiences from the other places. So it felt right, you know. So, and I was very honored to get these positions, you know. Being a head engineer at any studio is an accomplishment. So I try to like do the best I can and help everybody out.
Almost definitely. And I do feel like as you said, with head engineers, you know, like they know like how like that space is, they know like how like the equipment works, and you know, like even like with the instruments too. So I do feel like they do have a general understanding of like what they feel and like what they hear and like what artists is like ever is like in a sense too. And you know, with you've managed to work with people of all types of genres, produce and engineer their music. In that sense, what can you say that you've learned or experienced when working with different types of artists with different sounds?
Yeah, so different genres come with like different elements of the music that are important, right? So let's say like hip hop, the 808s and the vocals are probably the most important, right? So you mix towards that. But let's say with Latin, maybe the snare and the kick drum and the vocal are important. And in jazz, like less kick, more snare, and like less broken down, right? So each genre has different elements that are most important to the music. So learning that and like learning how to work and work within these different like workflows and techniques within the music has really been a benefit to me, you know. And it all comes with experience, like learning, sitting down with these artists that listen to this music, that make this music, and just like figuring out what's most important to them in the song, and then just carrying that over to different sessions, different situations and stuff. It's all like a domino effect, you know.
And I don't know what's your like ethnicity too in that sense, because I know like with some people, you know, you could actually like work with others like depending on their language if you like speak the language or are like fluent in that sense too, or like know the culture. So
yeah, so I'm Portuguese, but I work with like Punjabi artists, I work with Latin artists, right? So I I often like don't know what they're saying, but I have a pretty good understanding of like rhythm and flow, especially in the genres. So being able to communicate like that, like if I don't know what he's saying, but I know that like it should be like a little more on time. At least I know that, right? So I can benefit in that sense, right? And also cadence and like timbre and stuff like that. I can help in that sense, like when something should sound more like this or like that, you know. But in terms of lyrics, I can't really help on that aspect. But yeah, everything else I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. And also like with body language too. I do feel like it plays like a strong importance when dealing with like a lot of people too, because you know, some people, they might feel like, you know, comfortable like with what the person's doing right now with the engineering, or they might feel uncomfortable in that sense, like if it's like not at the best position. So sometimes you might get like a yell, or sometimes you might get like a weird shock or like a weird awe, like, or like their body becomes like more reserved, or it becomes like open, like whenever they hear like the mixing in that sense. So
I just like body language. Body language in any aspect is very important. You know, like it gives a sense of like the vibe of the room. You know, like obviously people can feed off your energy and feed off your vibe, right? So giving a positive body energy and like positive affirmations whenever you can is always good for studio sessions, because it just lightens the mood, and it helps everybody get into the space they need to create their best work.
most definitely. And do you have a creative process like when producing a beat or making music, and what would like a day in like the studio, like whenever you're making a beat or you're making like a beat at home or making music, be like?
Yeah, so like I like to make beats wherever, right? So like my kind of process is like, even with mixing, I'll do it wherever, like on my laptop speakers and my headphones. I'll get like a bass foundation and like get it where I want it, and then I'll always come to like the studio, like 145 or anywhere, right? And then I'll just do like a reference, because it's usually the low end that lacks when I'm doing it on the headphones or the laptop speakers, obviously. So I just come here, get that right, get everything leveled properly, and then it should be fine. But I like that workflow because I don't really like to be limited to like getting a good sound from the studio, you know what I'm saying? I want to be able to do that anywhere, and just whenever I feel motivated, I can just whip on my laptop and get started on something, you know. So working like that really helps me stay motivated, as well as stay balanced, you know, because balance is important with anything as well. If you overwork yourself or you don't work enough, then it's harmful to career and to like where you're gonna go. So yeah.
Yeah, and you know, usually like with the studio, there's like a lot of like studio rules or like housekeeping rules to kind of keep like the flow and like, you know, like the sanity like of the studio like at its best and all that. So I don't know, with the studios that you worked at, I don't know if you have like a few like ground rules or housekeeping rules, like when dealing with clients or when dealing with other people and all that.
Oh yeah, like ground rules dealing with clients, like the client's always right. Like my personal ground rule is like, one of them is don't overstep, you know. Like I learned that early. Like obviously you can have an opinion and like everything, but at the end of the day it's the artist's song, like, and me as an engineer, we're just like tools in the process, right? So doing our job correctly is like not getting noticed at all. Like if you can listen to a song properly and like without going like like, you know, something screeching and being too loud or too low, then we've done our job right. But just like not overstepping and like giving your opinions, and then like leaving it be, you know, letting it go. You can't get too personally attached to everything. And I find I did that a lot when I was early, right? I would work on songs that I really enjoyed, right? And I felt like, oh, this part could be better if you just did it like this. But a lot of times I would bring back negative feedback if you would push too much, because it's not my song, right? It's their song, and they're gonna do it the way they want to do it and the way they have it in their head. So that's one big rule that I like to follow as much as I can.
No, most definitely. And you know, when you worked on this project, like the series with MKSMNS, I know, like I said, MKSMNS.
Yeah, it's complicated, bro. You don't know it. I know.
What was like that process like for you, like creative wise, and the inspiration for that series? And I don't know if there's like a meaning to that name for people to know.
Yeah, so basically what it means is just make some noise. JDMakesNoise, you know. So like following the Make Some Noise brand. It's just without the vowels. So, but yeah, like the inspiration behind that was like I said, like when I'm working with artists day to day, I'm usually just a tool in the process, and like I like to keep like a minimal, like I don't like to be overbearing, you know. I like to do my job, I like to do it well, and then I like to make sure everybody's happy. So these projects are really a way to like let me like get a forehand and like and making my own project, you know, and like really having a say in the final say and how I want things and stuff. So that was like, it's like the closest thing for me to release like my own like album, right? So it's cool. Like I like to do it, and then as well, I like to bring artists that I get to work with every day together on a project, and then showcase them on a new platform, you know, as well as give them opportunities to gain new audiences. And then as well, I know a lot about like the business side and the back end, really. So like getting to show these guys like different ways they can monetize their music, you know, and like helping people that way is really beneficial to me too. So doing all these things, just like community, you know, like bringing people together, and like you're not gonna conquer anything with just one person, you know. It's always gonna be a team.
So, one question that I really wanted to ask you, like, from your start, like, you know, getting into like Fruity Loops and like YouTube Beats, and like also with like the Rock Mics, to now being like the head engineer at like, a variety of studios, and you know, to having your own project with Make Some Noise, have you felt that you've grown as a producer and sound engineer from the start until now?
Definitely grown. I've grown as like a person, as an engineer. Like music definitely helped me grow into the person that I always wanted to be, you know. So like I guess like in some ways I've grown like more patient, you know, like I more understanding. I get to like I dive deep in things, you know, troubleshooting. I'm a lot better at troubleshooting and just getting a better understanding of different situations. But yeah, so like I've definitely grown. I've grown every year. Like if you don't grow, then like you're not doing something right? Like you should always look back on your past work and be like, wow, like I'm doing this way better now, you know. So if you're not doing that, then you're not doing something right. Like everybody aspires to be the best they can be, you know. So just keep working towards that.
Most definitely. And you know, you managed to work with like a lot of like well-known people like in the Toronto music scene. Like one of like the biggest artists like right now, you know, with Duvy, you know, like I know he's doing like a lot of shows like with Rolling Loud and with Metro, and you know his time in the States too, and then with Honcho Hoodlum, like an actual like OG like in the music game and all that, and like with other acts like Jayy Brown and Jaay Cee. So what was like working with them like in terms of like engineering their music and the creative process, and how are they like when they're in the booth and like what the process is in making music?
Yeah, so one thing that all these guys definitely share in common is they definitely have like their workflow down, right? Like they know how they like to work and they know what gets them their best product, right? So working with that is like really beneficial because it makes my job a lot easier, you know. Like when I all I have to do is just like engineer, right? Like I just have to, you know, he can go da da da, stop, next, blah blah blah. Just the quickness is like it makes my job easier, you know. When I have to like kind of play different roles and put on different hats is when it kind of gets more complex. But having these guys in their workflow and then them doing it so well and like so efficient is it's an amazing experience, you know, because it allows me to do my best work as well, and then the product comes out amazing and everybody's happy, you know. So yeah, working with them is awesome.
And were you like kind of like more like face to face with them, like the like you behind like the laptop and all that, like doing the engineering and like them in the booth too, or would it be like, you know, they would reach out to you like via email and then, you know, you'd engineer it like on the side? So
no, it'd be live in person. It would be in person, yeah. So with Duvy, I worked with Duvy at Major Music, and that was cool. It was actually like one of the first sessions I ever did like by myself. So working with him was cool. It was a great experience. And he's like, all these guys are cool guys, you know. All these guys are sick guys. So everybody's just cool, you know. So just being able to work with them and be in the same room as these guys is an honor, right? So
yeah, no, most definitely. And you know, one major name that you actually worked with was, you know, being in the studio with ATL Jacob, like the multi-platinum producer who worked with like Dirk, with Drake, with Future, with all these other people too. So how did that come about, and what was like that experience like? And what advice did he give you on becoming successful in the industry and such?
Sure. Like so it was like a regular day in the studio, right? I was at SoundScan. It happened at SoundScan, and I was just in the studio. And my boy calls me. He's like, yo, you wanna be in the studio with ATL Jacob tonight? And obviously I was like, alright, bro, chill. Like that's obviously not happening. So he's like, yeah, it's happening, da da da, right? And so like, long story short, he was supposed to come at 6, right? 6, 7, 8, 9. So like 4 hours later, we're like, yo, he's not coming. And then he pulls up in like a white Wraith 2022, and when like 4 security guards hop out, right? They do the checkup, and then and then he hops out, comes in, right, and then introduce, yo, what's up? I'm Jacob, JD. Regular shit, right? Just a regular interaction. And they brought an artist he worked with from Dubai, I believe. And so they were just in there cooking up, working, right? And I was really just trying to listen and observe more than anything, you know, trying to gain any perspective I could. Cause like with me, like obviously I have like 8 years, 9 years now. I can just kind of like listen and kind of understand what people are doing on their stuff. So it was really just me trying to like, you know, how did it sound on the speakers in the studio and like compared to what I got going on, and just trying to elevate any way I could, right? So being in the studio with him was a blessing because I kind of I got an ear in on what the top level beats are sounding like and what they're working on and how I can improve my stuff, you know. He didn't, for advice, it wasn't really too much advice. It was more just I learned things from his productions and the way he like moved with his artists and stuff. So
and I know like with ATL Jacob, you know, like having like a brand name come like all the way to Toronto to work with these people, to work with like a lot of people like around here too, it's kind of interesting in that sense. And when you see him like, you know, producing beats or like sort of like engineering, you kind of figure out like what music he's gonna make soon, like what's gonna be like on the charts coming up or what's gonna be like hot in the streets and all that. So
yeah,
sometimes you'll have like your ear like on what's gonna happen next, you know. So
no, yeah, for real, it's a blessing. Yeah, I definitely took that opportunity. And made the most out of it in my eyes.
Yeah, most definitely. And I want to get more into like your production gear and like what you use like for producing and engineering in that sense. So, what's your main go-to gear like in that sense?
For engineering, the preamp, the LA 1076. Basically, it's a preamp channel strip. And it has the the LA 610 has the opto compressor in it, and then so I like the opto more than the VCA. So because of the way it captures the transients, right? It's not too aggressive on it. Even with rap vocals or singing vocals, I find that the opto, I like the sound that corresponds with it a little better. So, but I use the 1076 at 145. So you can go look that up. It's fire. It's a fire preamp. Here we have the U87 AI. With the Go Club, we got the U87i remake. That's pretty fire. Right here in Toronto, the guy makes it. SoundScan, we got the TLM 103, and the LA 610 is at there as well. So I'm a big fan of the LA gear. In terms of engineering, for producing, I don't really use a lot of gear. Like in terms of like melodies, I'll use one shots a lot. Like drum kits, you know, I draw my stuff in a lot. I use a Mac, I use Logic to produce, and yeah, that's basically it. Stuff.
You know what's interesting too? There's this question that is like very interesting with the concept of producing nowadays, and it's been like this since like 2016, 2017, but rapper type beats.
Yeah.
And I don't know if in your opinion, like on how you feel about them, and if it sort of like diminishes like the artistry when making those types of like productions and all that.
I don't think so. I think on the contrary, like it helps everybody like categorize things, right? So like, let's say you're an A&R and you get sent like 100 beats, right? So like it could be like piano beats, but there's like a bunch of different piano beats. It could be like an R&B beat. It could be a little baby type beat or something like that, right? So doing these like bigger name artist type beats is kind of like a way to help categorize beats. Like it won't say per se that just because you're using a little baby type beat means that you sound like Little Baby. It means that you want a beat that sounds like something that Little Baby would hop on per se. You know what I'm saying? So it just helps everybody to characterize A&Rs, producers, artists. It just helps them understand faster your idea behind the beat. You know what I'm saying? So.
I know there was like a lot of producers, like not like a lot, but like I'd say like more so like people who are critical with music that spoke up against like the whole like rapper type beat stuff. And I know Metro might have talked about it. I think Southside might have like talked about it. But like when you have like people like Cash Money AP and iStar, and I think Polo G's a producer from that song with TJ Pop Out. So I know like those people are more likely to make like rapper type beats in that sense too. So
it's a lane, right? Like you can't hate on these guys for taking advantage of something that's there, you know. So they're just smart enough to utilize it before everybody else. So there's gonna be more lanes, and they're probably gonna be like worse than that one. So like it's just people find ways to get themselves ahead. So you can't hate on people for using their head and like really trying to get themselves elevated.
Yeah, no, most definitely, man. As far as like pet peeves, like what are your pet peeves as like a producer and engineer in that sense?
My biggest pet peeve is probably like overstepping. Like if people try to like not try to tell me what to do, but like if you're someone that I like respect, has more years like experience than me, and then someone I can learn from, then obviously I'll take advice from that person. But if it's someone who doesn't really like do much in the field that I'm doing, then like them trying to tell me something is like very annoying, because like if like it's not like I spent like 9 years like doing this just for people like to tell me how to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. It's very annoying for people to try like with less experience trying to tell you how to do things.
And I guess like with other people too, like I think just like I think there's like some common ones that most people say. It's more so like, as you said, like people like speaking like, oh, I could do this like better in that sense too, like sort of like in the overstepping type lane.
Yeah.
I think also just knowing if anything were to affect like the keyboards, like the monitors and that type of stuff too, like with liquids, with weed and all this, all that type of stuff. So
yeah, drinks close to the equipment is definitely a pet peeve as well. Like that one's just common sense. So if someone's putting a drink close to the gear, like I don't know what to tell you. You know, that's mod.
most definitely. We just have these last three questions right here. But for you, aside from like the whole like rock stuff and like also with Big Saturn and all these other people, what other artists or genres were you mainly influenced by, and which artists would you like to work with that you haven't worked with before?
One artist that I'm like super influenced by is probably Gunna. More recently, like I just like I fuck with Gunna. Like just like a lot of his earlier stuff is really like is what I'm listening to a lot now. And just like especially the production with Turbo and Weezy as well. Like those guys, it's just like it's pretty crazy. Another big inspiration, Kenny Beats, Alex Toomey. Just Young Thug's former engineer. So a lot of that side like of music, right? Like the Gunna and Young Thug, like that's what I'm really inspired by. Yeah.
Yeah, no, most definitely, man. I don't know if you've heard Gunna's song with like FN Meka, I think Florida Water and all that. So
yeah.
AI rapper.
I haven't heard that. I haven't like listened to it too much, but I heard like a little bit of it. Yeah.
How do you feel about that whole situation with FN Meka and him being like an AI like rapper and all that, and like the recent controversies with him saying like,
oh damn, boy. Oh, that tracks with that guy, the AI guy.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, like I don't know. I find it like I don't know. I want to say disrespectful, but like it's kind of like so weird. It's just weird.
In a sense too, like I know in some cases too, like they're trying their best to incorporate AI into like the music industry and everything else too.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it might be like unauthentic in that sense too, because I do feel like there is like no sense of creativity within people that are in AI, or the whole sense of like robotics too, because they can't like form like human emotions. So and with music, you have to form like human emotion. You actually have to like enjoy it in that sense too. So there is like a lot of debate on whether there is like a lot of genuinity like in that music in that sense. So
true. Yeah, I feel like it's gonna get freaky for real, like the shit that they're gonna do with the AI. Yeah, it's gonna get weird.
As far as like the Toronto music scene right now, how do you feel about it like right now at the moment? Do you feel like there should be some changes on the direction of how the scene should be, or do you feel like we're at a good place right now?
I definitely feel like in the past couple years, the Toronto music scene's definitely been shaken up. Like it felt like it was really getting like rooted in like a great foundation, and a community was getting put together, and kind of some like unfortunate situations happened that kind of rocked the community. And now I feel like we're standing at a place where like people aren't really sure where to stand. You know what I'm saying? Like and that's kind of like it's kind of putting a pause on like our momentum that we had. But obviously there's still people doing their thing, and there's new artists emerging and coming up and doing the thing. You know, it's just I feel like, yeah, I feel like if we can get back to that feeling of like, you know, we had our like our gladiators, our warriors, you know, and they were like putting out a good name for us, and then it kind of got rocked, it kind of got shifted, and then now it's just like, yeah, it's like the spotlight kind of went away from us for a bit, but we can get it back with the same like with the same drive, with the same motivation. We'll get the spotlight back on that.
Most definitely. Do you feel like Rolling Loud might add that shine too? Like, I know it's coming up in a couple weeks. I mean,
we'll see. Like yeah, like Rolling Loud is one of those things where it could be like really good or really bad, you know. So I think like really, I don't know if anybody can say for certain if it's gonna be good or bad. Like, but I guess we'll see, you know.
I know with Tara Lord, like someone that you've actually worked with before, like she's on like the lineup on the third day. So
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm excited, bro. Like she's gonna do her thing. There's a lot of artists I know on there that are gonna do their thing. Like, and I'm glad that Rolling Loud like really reached out and tried to put on some local Toronto talent that they probably wouldn't have known about before doing the Rolling Loud Toronto. So that's a really good look. And obviously, like artists are disappointed that they didn't get put on over other artists, but at the end of the day, like it's a good look for the city, and if we go and we support this movement, like who knows, next year it'll be bigger, and then the year after that, and then everybody will get a chance, you know. So it's all about community at the end of the day.
Definitely, man. And so what's next for you, like in terms of like any other music or creative projects and so forth? And do you have any like final words you'd like to say for any creative or any person out there pursuing their dreams?
What I'm doing right now, just working on I'm doing a lot of mixing and stuff. So I'm trying to really focus in on becoming more of a mixing engineer as well as producer. And next project, I'm not really sure when I want to drop it. It's always like a time is right kind of thing, you know. Like I kind of feel like the situation that I'm in at the time is like a good time to release some new music from my end. So, but yeah, for right now, just working on other people's music, trying to get the best products for everybody. Words of advice, just keep going, you know, like only you are in control of your own destiny, you know, so you gotta make the most out of it.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, JDMakesNoise, thank you for coming by to the platform, you know, for your very first like in-person video interview, for sharing your story, to sharing your experiences with everything else too. You know, an amazing catalog, an amazing story from like start to end and all that, and hopefully there's more coming like in that sense too, you know. So
thank you, bro.
yeah, too. Peace.